property owner involved in the request, as well as kind of with the other property owners under the umbrella of this application. I'm not going to read all of the parcel numbers to you. Those are in your packet on my memo, which is part of the official record. I will just quickly list the addresses under consideration. 14 Cane Creek Road, 20 Cane Creek Road, and 24 Cane Creek Road, as well as 3 very small residual parcels of land that are unaddressed on Cane Creek Road that are more or less under same ownership of some of those other addressed parcels. We also have 123 Presley Hill Road, 103 Presley Hill Road, and 81 Presley Hill Road. The grouping of properties being considered tonight contains a mix of existing legally non-conforming commercial uses, including the former A1 Tire, a medical use, and another old commercial building, as well as several other properties with existing residential uses. And those, again, mentioned those couple residual parcels attached to the commercial lots. Again, I'm mentioning that the rezoning request is to take this from the existing R2 residential to the NBD district. All of these parcels fall in the Heart of Fletcher overlay, which identified this area some years back when the overlay was established as a potential area for neighborhood business. NBD district is intended to provide a mix of residential uses as well as basic commercial services within a 5 to 10 minute walk of neighborhoods. Staff feels the request for this rezoning is consistent with the town's overall land use plan and fits within the vision of the Heart of Fletcher overlay district. And I'll mention that at their November 21st meeting, the Fletcher Planning Board unanimously recommended that this rezoning be approved. I will reiterate, I've had this question a couple times, there is no development proposal for these lots currently. This is a straightforward rezoning request. It is not a conditional zoning that often marries the rezoning to a specific development plan. This is simply a rezoning request, as Mr. Ost will get into in a moment. That's all I have for my initial comments, and I'll pause for questions, or rather we could move to go into public hearing and we could invite Mr. Ost for his presentation.
Okay. Do we have any questions? No. Are we going to have the presentation before our public hearing?
You can make the motion to go into public hearing.
Okay. Is there a motion to enter public hearing for rezoning request R-2023-01?
Make a motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of entering public hearing, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? We're on public hearing. Now, if I'm clear, he's speaking during the public hearing now. And then just 1 second, I just want to clear something up to make sure we're clearly doing everything correctly. We got one person signed up, but I think it was a mistake, Mr. Brandon Olson, mistakenly. Okay. Then the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, and thanks to Mayor Rupa and the planning director. Been there a long time. We live before the city of Asheville. It's my pleasure. My name is Bob Ost. I'm with the Asheville law firm of McGuire Wood and Bissett. It's my pleasure to be here tonight representing the Gene and Katrina Youngblood right here, who are the owners of the property, probably known to many of you all, in their rezoning. I have been in this area since 1960 or so. Fletcher's changed a lot. We represent Fletcher A1 Tire. Other properties include properties owned by Chris Johnson. I'll let you identify yourself. Chris Johnson, Mr. Garrett, I don't know his last name here. Mark Scheidler, who owns the dental office. Tara Matthews and her husband Dale right there, who owned the building that used to be Arden Heating and Air. Some or all of them may be known to some or all of you. I only formally represent the Youngblood, but the other, our interests are clearly aligned with the other folks here, and they authorized me to submit the application for them. They may want to address you as well. But as Eric explained, we are seeking rezoning of 9 properties, 5 different owners, And having a larger block of properties like this just strengthens the rezoning application, especially because it's got some connection to the commercial properties that are up on US 25. It makes it stronger from both a legal standpoint and from a planning standpoint. We're happy to have these other properties along, and we hope that conveys to you the message that the owners of these properties are all in support of this rezoning request. Here's here's the properties to be rezoned. They've all got the red dots on them, and I've crudely drawn a circle around them, or at least a line around them. And right now, they can only be used for residential purposes, and primarily for single-family residential purposes. That's the permitted use under the current zoning of the property. This rezoning will allow for the properties to be rezoned for purposes that conform to your plan, both the Fletcher land use plan and the Heart of Fletcher overlay plan. Here's a blow-up of those properties. You can see that on the west, they're bordered by the commercial properties up against US 25, on the north by Cane Creek Road, and on the south by Presley Hill Road. Some of the existing conditions, and you're all familiar with this property, so I'm not showing you anything new, but this is Fletcher A1 Tire and the parking lot for that business, which is on Cane Creek Road. This is Arden Heating and Cooling on Presley Hill Road. Here's the dental office on Cane Creek Road. And this is this is a map from the Hall of Fletcher, from the Heart of Fletcher overlay map, which shows the subject properties, and it's circled in red there. They're being in the town center, and their designation in that town center is town center neighborhood business. And if you look at the diagram up there, it's like we're in the Heart of Fletcher. And I think that's what makes this, that's one of the things that makes this rezoning request particularly significant here. Here's another a magnification showing that these properties up there in the northwest corner of the neighborhood business town center part of the Heart of Fletcher. Now, the Town of Fletcher Land Use Plan incorporates the Heart of Fletcher Plan and its development guidelines. And the goals and strategies in that plan include changing the character of the US 25 corridor, zoning to allow for mixed-use opportunities. That's throughout your plan, and to allow for higher density in the historic core. Now, the council, your job is to, one of your jobs is to consider the consistency with the land use plan and other plans. That's a statutory requirement. But there are several plans. There's the Fletcher Land Use Plan and the Heart of Fletcher Plan, both of which I've just spoken about. But there's also the Economic Development Plan, which indicates that this provides you with an opportunity for shaping for shaping the future of this area. The Economic Development Plan says the town center should provide opportunities for shopping, dining and entertainment, and that the area should be more of a destination, not just someplace to drive through. Here's another entry from your Economic Development Strategic Plan, and it is too long to read in its entirety, but the emphasis here is on the experience people have when they come to this area, and they want that to be why people come there. This is an opportunity to start that process. The first step is to facilitate the appropriate land uses, and you do that by changing the zoning. This is from the Fletcher Land Development Code, which if those of you who are concerned about there not being any specific plan here, shouldn't be, because the Heart of Fletcher, the Land Development Code provides that any development within this area that's anything other than a single family or a single family home or a duplex has to be reviewed by the planning board, and that planning board has to adhere to certain fairly specific and fairly strict guidelines. Here's the Heart of Fletcher overlay purpose statement. which, and again, I want to emphasize that the overlay is intended to prevent suburban-style development while still allowing for creativity and flexibility in creating urban, pedestrian-oriented design opportunities in and around the town center. And the focus here, as you can see, is on pedestrian-oriented development. This is from the Heart of Fletcher overlay plan. You can see a lot of parallels in here. The neighborhood business precinct, they call it a precinct in the plan, is designed to accommodate a range of uses in pedestrian scale buildings in close proximity to Fletcher's neighborhood, scaled to provide basic services within a 5 to 10 minute walk. I'm not going to cover these in detail, but these are just some of the design standards, the dimensional requirements that apply within the Heart of Fletcher overlay area. You can see that the building height is not 10 stories or 20 stories, but it's limited to 3 stories. And there are a number of other fairly strict development standards. This is the purpose statement for the classification that we are requesting. And you can see here again, there's an emphasis on walkability, another reference to services being within a 5 to 10 minute walk of the residences in the area. Now, is this going to happen overnight? No, but it makes it possible. It starts it off. As currently zoned, what the plan contemplates is not possible. Most uses in the R2 zoning classification do not require review by the planning board, so you're not going to have any control over the appearance or design of it if the zoning remains as it is. So even the current zoning is at odds with the Heart of Fletcher plan and your land use plan. Here are some other development standards, and again, I'm not going to read these, but you can see here that it's fairly strict for the neighborhood business district that we're requesting the rezoning to. So in summary, what I'd like to say is that the requested zoning, as Eric pointed out, is consistent with the land use plan, the Heart of Fletcher overlay plan, and other plans, as it has to be, or as it should be, in order for the rezoning to be supported. This rezoning will allow for beneficial development and use of the property to realize the town's vision for the area. This is your vision. It was unopposed at the planning board, and there was a unanimous recommendation for approval. And also, this is not on here, but the current zoning is not supported by the plan. So I ask you to trust your ordinance, trust your plan, trust your staff, trust yourselves, and please adopt this rezoning. I'll be glad to answer any questions either now or later on.
Do we have any questions or comments?
I'm just really surprised with all the commercial building right there that it wasn't zoned in that manner to begin with. Because all it is commercial right in that little section.
Yeah.
So I'm really surprised it wasn't zoned for that already.
I can speak to that shortly.
Okay.
I don't want to say anything Eric's going to say, but I think that's a reflection of the way things were before zoning, before Fletcher was incorporated.
Okay.
All righty. We thank you, sir. Thank you. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak during the public hearing? Seeing none, do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
Make a motion.
Okay, we have a motion to close the public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second to close the public hearing. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of closing the public hearing, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, we're outside of public hearing. Eric, were you going to mention something?
To address your last question, Sheila, back when we first had our first set of zoning districts, the neighborhood business district did not exist. It was either C1 or the residential, and I think they erred on the side of capturing the residential properties and that started right behind what is now some commercial development as R2, and that happened as you went down Cane Creek Road. It happened to capture some of those it rendered the commercial buildings grandfathered, and I think at the time there just wasn't, the concept of neighborhood business district was not fairly well fleshed out. So when we amended, when we created and drafted the land development code in the 2005 and when it was adopted in 2006, that's when we had verbiage adopted in the ordinance establishing a neighborhood business district, yet we didn't get any on the map because there wasn't felt the right climate. They didn't want to tie up the adoption of the ordinance with any rezonings at the time. So, and then when we established the overlay district, the sentiment was to just let's get the overlay established and not rezoning anything at the time and let it build kind of organically on a request by property owners as opposed to anything driven by the town. So that's where it brings us to tonight. So.
That brings us to tonight. Do we have any other discussion or questions? Okay, if we're ready to vote, the motion will need to be to either approve or deny the request. If anybody would like to make a motion?
I would.
No. Is your motion to approve the request?
I would make a motion to approve the rezoning request R 2023-01 from R2 to Neighborhood Business District.
Okay.
I'd like to second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the rezoning request. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the request, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. And we thank you. And we thank you all. All right, and we have one more public hearing coming up to consider amendment. Go for it, yeah.
I just have a quick question. Is there any businesses on your radar to go in those spots? You got any information to share? Okay.
I personally don't. I know that some of my clients have had conversations with them, but I don't know the specifics of any of that.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
No, yeah, get it. We'll be okay. Alrighty, we thank you.
Thanks, sir.
And just FYI, everybody's free to stay for the longevity of our meeting, or you're free to go at any time that you want to. Just get up whenever you're ready.
Stick around.
Of course.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, y'all have a good evening.
Mark?
Yep.
Mr.
See y'all.
See you. Good to see
See
you.
y'all.
Hey, good to see you.
Okay, now moving on to the public hearing to consider an amendment to the land development code regarding building allowances in the M1 district. Mr. Rufa.
Okay, well, thank you again, Mayor. Spoke to you briefly when we set the public hearing last month. This item concerning building height in our M1 zoning district. M1 is our manufacturing or industrial district. At their November 21st meeting, the planning board unanimously recommended an amendment to Article 2 of the Land Development Code regarding the maximum allowed building height for a structure in the M1 zoning district. The current allowance currently states 3 stories. The LDC states that a story is 14 feet, meaning that the current height would be 42 feet. The recommendation the planning board made is to amend the ordinance to allow 56 feet or 4 stories maximum. This issue, as I indicated last month, it arose from an inquiry from the Henderson County Partnership for Economic Development. They did not have an entity seeking to come to Fletcher, but rather they occasionally find out about an industrial entity looking for a location, and that entity decides whether or not to kind of pitch to that industry to try and recruit them here. So I started getting some questions about what is our allowed building height, because this particular industry they found in the prospectus or whatever would have required something along the lines of 130 feet, which would have been to accommodate, I think, I never did hear what type of industry, but it was to accommodate some really large, tall equipment. At the time, I told what our existing height allowance was. They decided they weren't going to recruit that industry. But it did spark a conversation, because at the time I found out that the county's building height limit in their industrial district is 72 feet. When we first spoke to planning board about it, I went asking their opinions on 72 feet or 5 stories. Our industrial district, if it was daylight, you could see out that window going that way. It's, kind of in a flat area with the mountains in the distance. Planning board was largely concerned about view shed, so in the end, they wound up compromising, came up with the recommendation of 56 feet. Brittany Brady for the Partnership for Economic Development I spoke to, and she thought that would largely be fine. Most in the standard industry doesn't exceed that. Once in a while, you would see something come along with an odd piece of equipment. If we ever ended up in that situation, we could potentially consider, variances on it or something of that nature. There is some language in the ordinance that talks about some little exceptions for kind of minor height adjustments, for where there's building height added for non-occupied space. Nothing that would have given me solid cover to approve something at 130 feet. I mean, that would have been close to a 10-story building standing out on the horizon over there. So that's what's before you tonight, is a recommendation to change this to 56 feet or 4 stories. Happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Okay, we're ready to go into the public hearing. I think so. Do we have a motion to enter the public hearing?
Make a motion?
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All righty. We're on the public hearing. Is there anybody that wishes to speak during the public hearing? Doesn't look like it. Do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
Make a motion.
Okay, we have sure. We have a motion to close the public hearing. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, we are outside the public hearing. I guess we'll be ready to vote. Is there a motion to approve the amendment to the Land Development Code regarding building allowances in the M1 district?
Make a motion to accept.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Easy enough.
Thank you, Eric.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Eric.
All righty, moving on to item number 6, the update on the Town Center project. Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. In follow-up to last week, I got in touch with Brad Goodson with the Carlin Company and had a good conversation with him. He indicated that his intent is to buy the property and not lease. I think getting into some more of the discussion matters on this, or negotiation, not necessarily negotiation, but maybe a little bit more of the explanation of what his approach is. I suggested a couple things, either a smaller one-on-one meeting with him, and it could be, 2 council members at a time, or him coming back at the next meeting and giving a more formal or detailed presentation on his approach. And I also got a follow-up question from Jim on this, and he wanted to get a little bit more on the construction, financing, long-term sustainability as far as the approach. But, what he's doing is he needs to look at, obviously, construction costs, what he can bring as far as potential tenants, and then crunch those numbers, look at the purchase price, and I know he may not be looking at purchasing the entire tract, so that'd be something we'd have to think about. Do you subdivide it? But I think even before you get there, it may be helpful to, as a first start, to have a small group discussion on this, and then if you wanted to come back with a little bit more details, it's maybe starting to get into the pro forma type stuff, he could do that. But, really the next step on this, whether it's the Carling Company or another company, is to get to some type of formal engagement with them, a letter of intent or some other type of document, if you're comfortable with that. So,
I'd like to have some one-on-one meetings or a couple council members at a time with Mr. Goodson, if that's possible. If council also wants to do that, that seems appropriate. And if it needs to come back to a full council meeting, I think it'd probably be appropriate to ask him to come back to do that as well, if we feel it's necessary.
I personally like the 2 members at a time, like we did the last developer. You can go one-on-one and ask the detailed questions and everything. But before we negotiate an agreement or anything, I like to continue talking with that individual myself.
all right. And it isn't a full-blown negotiation, but it helps sometimes to do that in a little
Informal area.
setting.
Less pressure.
Yeah, I mean, you get into a public meeting like this, and then, you get into further discussions, and then it gets into strategy and things like that. And, and a developer doesn't necessarily want to go into a lot of details on that. This step is, are you comfortable with him taking a deeper dive into looking at our project and seeing if they can come back with, okay, here's what I reasonably think I can do. I need this amount of time to put together a plan on this and some numbers to crunch. And then from there, you get into a negotiation of an actual developer agreement, similar to what we did before with Lewis Real Estate Group and the Waddell's. So,
I mean, I do think once we do the meetings, 2 council members at a time, he needs to come back and, maybe present a overall view package for the citizens of our town.
yeah,
So,
yeah. And obviously in full transparency on it, yes, that has to happen. And any approval, that has to happen, and, that kind of public vetting.
It sounds
So
like, oh, go ahead.
I can work to start facilitating these then with Mr. Goodson, so.
That sounds appropriate to me. It
Okay.
sounds like it sounds appropriate to the rest of council.
Yeah.
We're all good there? Yeah. Sounds good. If you need anything else from us on that item?
I don't.
Okay.
But I should say, I think I emailed you all about this, and it may have said last week, but that email may have come in since our discussion on this last week, but there was a third entity, NAI, Mark Morris with NAI Beverly Hanks had some kind of national clients, and they're not at the point where they can be bringing something formally to you. So maybe they step back into the picture. I don't know the names of the national client. I know one was more commercial, one was more of a residential focus. So that's, but it's right now, it's probably Windsor Autry, at least at this point in
Sure,
time,
yeah.
and a Carlin Company who you want to hear a little bit more from.
We have any questions or comments? All right. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
All righty, moving on to discussion on council committee seats and filling vacancies. We have 2 vacancies, one on the NPO and the one on the Henderson County Transportation Advisory. I guess the first question I'll have is anybody interested in it? You're interested in it? Is there anybody else interested? Okay. Well, are we okay with Jim taking those seats there?
If he's willing to do it,
Absolutely.
yeah.
All right, easy enough. We'll put it on Jim.
I don't know if that needs any motion. Maybe you might want to.
Do you need a motion, Christie?
Okay. All
Okay.
right.
All right, that was easy. Moving on to your comments, Mr. Manager.
Okay, thank you, Mayor, Council. So last week I mentioned the Grant Greenway extension. Well, several things that Conserving Carolina is looking at doing and continuing to keep a focused partnership with the town on any grant opportunities, in particular the extension of the Cane Creek Greenway onto over towards the Meritor property. In particular, and I know Eric commented a little bit earlier in the budget work session on it, the connecting communities to state trails. So we hope to get some more details on that next month if she's able to come back. And again, that's a $500,000 grant. That's the match. Well, it's $250,000. You have to match it dollar for dollar. So with the local match, it would be a $500,000 project. And I shared with you last week some preliminary numbers that McGill Associates put together to give you an idea about what it would be to construct the trail over a portion of the area. So that's what's going on with the connecting communities to state trails. Next thing, I know we talked a little bit about it last week, but we're going to try and facilitate a meeting with the executive director of the Housing Assistance Corporation, or HAC, that they're known as, and very just high-level look at some of the property on the north side of Town Hall and our town center area. Is there any opportunities maybe for a small-scale workforce housing, affordable housing element? It could be multifamily, just to try and get units in there of some significance without taking a lot of the property up. So we'll have that discussion. I know there was like focus on workforce housing, maybe there's focus on like teachers, public safety officials, because they've had specific affordable housing programs, I know, for first-time home buyers assistance for those target audiences. So we'll let you know once that's set up and kind of feedback on what we get back from them. The next thing is, we're going to be a polling place again in this election year, as we have been in the last several years. So I guess we don't need a decision right now, but definitely by next month for the March meeting, the Board of Elections is going to have control of the chambers here from March the 4th to the 6th, which then falls on our agenda review, or your agenda review for March. And do you want to go upstairs in our multi-purpose room and do that there, or skip the agenda review meeting? And of course, if I can give you more info at that time as far as if it's a heavy agenda, you might not want to do that, just in case there's some things you get times to, vet more by having the agenda review. So just keep that in mind. And then coming up in October and November, Board of Elections will have, and when I say control, just a reminder, they got to lock the room down here for obvious security reasons, since it's a polling place and that polling machine's in here, the locks are changed out, and so it's kind of a big deal that council chambers is really off limits completely during that time. But they'll be in here for the October 14th all the way to November 6th. And so that impacts our regular meeting, I believe, in October, and then the agenda review in November. So just kind of keep that on your radar. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, and I haven't had any meetings one-on-one with the interested party here, but, I think we've had some conversation, Sheila's brought this up. There's a gentleman who's interested in doing a partnership for additional tennis court facilities, Buster Brown. And he's emailed me for some information, and primarily Mayor and Sheila has been emailing. But the rest of the council hasn't really had any dialogue, I guess, unless I'm not aware of it, to this point. And there's kind of, I just advise a lot of questions you probably need to ask about this, or discussions at least, like where specifically, how many courts, is this something you want to entertain? If it's a cost share, how much of a cost share? If it's a cost share and a private entity is paying for part of it, what's the expectation for use, of public courts or semi-public, I guess, but all the facilities around it, the parking, et cetera, is public. So, if you want me to set something up initially,
Yeah.
we can do that. And maybe you might want to start with Mayor and Sheila, just to kind of flush out some of these questions, if the rest of the council's comfortable with that.
I think he
That's-
was just trying to get his figures together before he came and approached you for a presentation. But initially, I think he indicated to Preston and myself that he would like to use courts for fundamental lessons at particular times. And then, of course, we understand that the parking needed would be public, and there would be oftentimes that the courts would be open. But his intent was to be able to get some fundamental lessons going on some courts for people that want to learn how to play tennis, especially young people. So I think he was really focusing on the youth.
I think there's an opportunity here for sure.
I think so, yeah.
And I think it is appropriate, Mark, if we can maybe set up a meeting between you, me, Sheila, and Buster, if council's okay with that, just to circle back with him like you suggested and see where we can move forward.
Anytime anybody wants to pay half for our courts,
We listen.
yeah, I think it's well worth
Yeah.
the effort to see what he comes up with.
Absolutely.
Yeah, before this got too much further along, I think I would just advise that you have some more discussion as a board about this, and also get more details about where and how much and what the expectation is from the
Yeah, at this point, we're
contributor.
just like, okay, just bring it to us what you got. And
Yeah.
we're not making any promises anywhere.
Because the next, there was also a question in there about our engineering firm starting to do
I was really
compaction
surprised
testing,
about that.
And I don't know if it's quite appropriate for us to start doing that.
No,
yet.
I didn't comment
So,
on that.
Okay. So I'll follow up, unless you want me to go ahead and
Yeah, if you don't mind.
facilitate that, okay?
Thank you, Mark.
Yep. And that's all I had.
Okay. Do we have any questions for Mark? Okay, any other business from council? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Make the motion.
Do we have a motion to adjourn? Is there a second?
Second.
Do we have a motion and a second to adjourn? Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of adjourning say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? We are adjourned.
Thank you.
Something happens, you do that.